Hey guys, welcome to another edition of the Monday Morning Tennis Rant. We have a lot to talk about in today's video. We're going to discuss the Vienna final, the Basel final, and I am finally going to discuss the schedule, the 10th Masters that's been added, and all the injuries in this last week that have a lot of people concerned with the schedule. So let's get started with the Vienna final between Zverev and Sinner. I didn't expect Zverev to play like the old Zverev, which was very nice to see. And I think this can be the return of the true top 5 player. Because the thing with Zverev, even though he's been ranked in the top 5, he has not been a top 5 player since the Australian Open. Now, he got a lot of points last year, for example, winning the Paris Masters, semifinals of the ATP finals, Australian Open finals. So those points were still on his record. They didn't fall off, and that's why he was able to hold that high ranking. But if he didn't do what he did in Vienna, there was a danger that the ranking fall off in the next few months could have been quite drastic. But I do believe now this can be averted because Zverev might be back to his old form. We don't know yet. And he might be back to the top 5 player that he's been for so many years. So this match starts, and Sinner is holding very easy. Zverev, on the other hand, is struggling a little bit on the service game. So I thought, okay, Sinner is going to find a chance to get a break and is going to run away with this match. But this turned out to be quite different because 2-1 Zverev, Sinner serving. Sinner is up 40 love, about to hold easy. Zverev ends up breaking Sinner in this game. He then goes down 15-40 in the next service game. Sinner plays a good return game. He's very good at breaking back when he does lose a serve. But Zverev is serving exceptionally well on this Vienna indoor court and ends up holding this game, saving those 2 break points, and now he's up 4-1. Sinner, in the game, down 1-4, is hitting one drop shot after another from disadvantageous positions in the court, to say the least, way behind the baseline on one occasion. And it looked like Sinner might not even be able to finish this match. He was limping in between points, and I thought he might pull the ripcord. Something's wrong with Sinner. But then miraculously, he ends up holding this game, and now it's 4-2 Zverev. Again, Zverev serving incredibly well. It goes up 5-2. And now, let me introduce you to a new strength that Sinner has developed since the Six King Slam, and it is the Sinner smile. So as you guys know, Sinner, a serious character on the court, ice cold, somewhat reminiscent to Stefan Edberg or Björn Borg. But at the Six King Slam, I saw the Sinner smile in between points. And I thought, okay, maybe, this is not an official tournament. Let's see how he presents himself on the court in an official tournament. And again, I saw the Sinner smile several times in this match. And it came when he was down 5-2 on the changeover. He was smiling. All of a sudden, he turns it on and plays an exceptional service game, gets this set to 5-3 Zverev. And in this service game, he seems loose, relaxed. Again, he's smiling. And all of a sudden, he finds his game. Now, he wants to break Zverev, who is serving for this set. And Sinner does make this game complicated. It goes over deuce. But again, Zverev, one of the best servers in the world, delivers 2 bombs. One ace on deuce and then another big serve up set point that he follows up with a backhand winner. And Zverev ends up taking this set 6-3. I truly believe that 5-2 game was a little bit of a turning point for Sinner, because even though he lost that first set 6-3, he came out in the second set absolutely on fire, held his first service game very easily, and Zverev is serving down love 1. And remember when I said Sinner was drop shotting a lot, down 1-4 in the first set? Well, Sinner continued to drop shot like a madman, Alcaraz style. And here's the thing about Sinner's drop shot, it has gotten so much better. It wasn't working when he was down 1-4 in the first set, even though he ended up holding that game. But when he was ready to break Zverev's serve, the drop shot was working phenomenally well. He hits one at 30 all, which gives him break point. Zverev hits a humongous serve, brings it back to deuce. He delivers another bomb and hits an ace and gives himself game point to tie the second set at 1 all. But again, Sinner comes out with a forehand drop shot and brings it back to deuce. Now, Zverev was hitting the second serve aggressively in this match, and I think he knew that he needed to do this because the center second serve return is absolutely lethal. And it's for that reason why the double fault count on Zverev was a little bit higher than normal. And it, quite frankly, needed to be. But unfortunately, Zverev throws in a double fault at deuce. And now it's breakpoint Sinner. And again, Sinner wins this game by hitting another drop shot winner, this time from his backhand side. So the biggest improvement in Sinner's game recently, apart from the improvements that he's made on his serve, is his field game. I've heard that he's working on his drop shots a lot. I've seen him work on drop shots a lot, and they're finally paying off. His feel has gotten a lot better. Now, up 2-love, he holds very easily, and you can just feel that Sinner is now in control of this match, even though he had lost that first set. Sinner is now absolutely demolishing the ball from the back of the court. He's continuing to serve well. Zverev is also serving well. Both players hold, but Sinner runs away with this set 6-3. Now, in the third, I thought that Sinner was going to continue to dominate, but it didn't quite turn out that way because Zverev played an exceptional match in this final, pretty much in every set, but especially in that first set and the third set. I thought that Zverev's level was sky high because Sinner was now on fire and he was looking to break the Zverev serve. And he had several chances to do so, but Zverev was holding strong. The game at 2-all with Zverev serving featured a lot of monster rallies. Sinner was very eager to get the break here, but again, Zverev was serving bombs. He was very clutch, and he ended up holding this game and went up 3-2. Now, on the other hand, Sinner was continuing to serve exceptionally well, and Zverev didn't really have that many chances to get into the Sinner service games. I have to point out something that I did notice in the third set, very similar to the first set, is that Sinner, again, was limping in between points. In the 3-all game that Zverev held, Sinner was limping, and I thought he might not even finish the match. It looked pretty serious, but then Sinner proceeded to hold very easily in the next game and tied his third set at 4-all. So this is something that I've been observing with Sinner for a while, even in the Wimbledon final. I've seen him limping. Maybe that's just his style of walking. He did touch his hamstring in this third set, so maybe something was wrong. I heard people say that he had cramps. I don't think Sinner was cramping in this match. He was cramping for sure in Shanghai, but not on an indoor court in Vienna. Absolutely no way that he was cramping. Maybe he felt something in his leg, but I think generally Sinner sometimes has a walking style in between points that kind of reminds me of Andy Murray, where it looks like Sinner can't even walk straight, but then once the next rally starts, he's sliding into the corners and running like an absolute maniac. So now we're at 5-all in the third, and this match has a lot of energy. The crowd is very excited, and you can just feel that Sinner wants to break right here, and he wants to get in more rallies. And Zverev, again, he's playing exceptionally well in this match, and even in this game, I thought that Zverev didn't necessarily do that much wrong, but Sinner was just putting a tremendous amount of pressure on him. And this was a tricky game because at 30-all, Zverev hit a serve that was close to unreturnable. Sinner got it back with the ball landing very close to the net, and Zverev almost missed the easiest ball ever, which was an overhead, so to speak, from very close to the net. Maybe he should have not hit an overhead on that one because the ball wasn't high enough, but he almost missed this ball with it clipping the net. But he wins the point nevertheless. He's up 40-30. And then Zverev hits a drop shot on the next point, and all my worries about Sinner's injury were erased because Sinner not only ran that drop shot down, but also hit a phenomenal backhand down the line and brought this game to deuce. Sinner then proceeds to play this absolutely insane rally where he's ripping the ball so hard, and Zverev is holding his own. Zverev was playing very aggressive in this match, hitting the ball harder than he normally does, but Sinner, just too strong in this rally, hits a backhand down the line winner, gives himself break point, and Zverev, unfortunately for him, sprays a ball down break point, and now it's 6-5 Sinner. He's serving for the match. He makes 3 consecutive monster first serves, gives himself 40-love, 3 match points. He does miss the first serve, delivers a great second serve that Zverev dumps in the net, which gives Sinner the second Vienna title. One that is very important to him, I believe. So my takeaways from the ATP 500 in Vienna are the following. First of all, Sinner has the capability to win without tapping into his absolute top level. I don't think that Sinner was at his best throughout the whole tournament. I don't think that Sinner played poorly, of course. He was playing well, but we know that Sinner can play even better. He was a tad up and down in some of the matches, but this is the sign of a great champion, and I hope that everything's okay with Sinner physically, number one, that he's able to play Paris, tournament that he was first going to skip, and then he was going to play, then he was going to skip it again, and now supposedly he's playing, but he's not going to play the Davis Cup, something that I talked about in my last video. A lot of people are upset with Sinner in Italy because he's skipping Davis Cup, but I think it's very smart that he's skipping. He gave Italy 2 Davis Cup titles, and I'll discuss later why I do believe that Sinner's decision to skip Davis Cup is the correct one. So Sinner has the ability to raise his level even more, and he's going to be extremely difficult to beat this indoor season. Now, the court at the new venue at the Paris Masters is playing extremely slow, and Carlos Alcaraz is excited. So let's see how that one turns out. We have to see how slow the surface is in actuality and whether that can be a potential advantage for Alcaraz. We got an exciting week ahead of us. Back to Zverev. This is the type of tennis that has made him a top 5 player. And in all these years, he's unbelievably dangerous. His first serve percentage is absolutely insane. He has the highest first serve percentage on the ATP Tour out of all players. I want you to put that in perspective because there are guys, for example, the number 1 for serve percentage is Sebastian Baez, who plays well on clay courts, and he doesn't put a lot of risk on his first serve. So there are players still on today's tour that just place the first serve. Maybe they even kick it sometimes. Maybe they're slicing it, but they're not looking to hit an ace or a service winner. They're just looking to get the first serve in. Now, Zverev is not doing that. He's hitting the first serve extremely hard, and yet he has the highest first serve percentage on the ATP Tour. That is truly phenomenal. And as Andrea Petkovic said in her podcast with Boris Becker, once Zverev steps foot on an indoor court, he's always going to be dangerous because of that serve. But on top of that, Zverev showed how aggressive he can be, because a lot of people always say that Zverev is such a pusher. He's a defensive player who stands so far behind the baseline. But one thing that you have to understand, look at this match against Sinner and look where Zverev was standing. He was standing in a similar position where he normally stands, but he was trusting his shots and he was hitting them a lot bigger. So the fact that Zverev is a little bit further behind the baseline doesn't mean that this is necessarily a defensive position. He can hit very hard from back there, but he needs to want to do that. It is true that sometimes in certain matches, Zverev can be a tad passive, but he certainly wasn't passive in this match against Sinner, or it wouldn't have been 7-5 in the third. The entire country of Brazil is proud of João Fonseca, who won his first ATP 500 title. And I thought that this was such an interesting match because Davidovich Fokina made 3 other finals this year. He made the Delray Beach final, in which he had 5-2 in the third, match point, and he hit a ball down the line about this wide. So he was so close to that title. Then the next week, he goes to Acapulco, an ATP 500 tournament, and loses again in the final to Mahach. And of course, he lost that heartbreaking match to Alex de Minaur in Washington. So I thought, okay, he's going to put it all together. He's playing a youngster who has not been in any ATP finals other than earlier this year in clay at Buenos Aires. He's going to take this chance and run away with this 500 title possibly. But before I start to get into the specifics of this match, one observation that I have about Davidovich Fokina in finals specifically is that he shows very negative body language, somewhat similar to the final in Washington. Again, in this final, very negative body language. I saw one fist bump through the entire match. And to me, this is just the wrong approach to a final. And the likelihood of playing a great player in a final of a big tournament like this is very high. And if you compare the body language that Fonseca showed throughout this match, it was so much better. And it's not a surprise to me that he was the winner of this match. So I think Davidovich Fokina, a very talented player, highly capable of taking these tournaments, multiple of them, maybe even going deep in Masters Series tournaments, something that he's done in Monte Carlo a few years back, or going deep in Grand Slam tournaments. He has these capabilities, but there is a reason why he's 0-5 in ATP finals. And in my opinion, his body language and his mental state is not as good as his opponents on that particular day. Now, let's get into the specifics of this match. So Fonseca starts serving, and in this first service game, I saw the improvement right there because Fonseca pulled off a forehand drop shot and then an immediate lob combo, a play that Alcaraz employs very frequently. And it is something that I'm seeing now way more from Fonseca, so he is adding other elements to his game. He looked very sharp in this first game Again, very positive body language. I thought that he might be a little bit tight coming out to a big match like this, but he wasn't. He holds easily in this first game. And Davidovich Fokina is the one that looked a little bit tight because he committed 3 errors in his first service game and lost his serve to love. Now, Davidovich Fokina did get into this match rather quickly because in the third game with Fonseca up 2-love, Fokina started playing a lot better and he gave himself a break point chance at 30-40 that Fonseca saved with a 232 kilometer an hour bomb. Fokina plays another exceptional point at deuce, gives himself another break chance, and again, Fonseca delivers a 227 kilometer an hour serve. I talked in my last video how much the Fonseca serve has improved, and he is absolutely ripping that serve. We always knew that Fonseca can rip forehands and backhands, but now he can also deliver absolute monster serves. So he ends up holding this game. He's up 3-love, but you can just feel that Davidovich Fokina is now in this match. He holds, now it's 3-1. He ends up breaking Fonseca and it's 3-2, but only to lose his serve immediately and give Fonseca the 4-2 advantage. In a lot of these baseline exchanges, my feeling was that Fonseca was completely overpowering Davidovich Fokina from the back of the court. He was hitting the ball very hard and drawing errors from Fokina and also, of course, hitting winners. Fonseca has a complicated service game that goes over deuce, but he ends up holding. Now it's 5-2. And something that I loved seeing from Fonseca throughout this match was that even though he was up a break in a set, he tried to get that insurance break really badly. So he gave himself a break point opportunity or set point opportunity at 5-2. Fokina serving to finish the set. Couldn't convert, but then served out the set and won it 6-3. Now, it can be complicated, especially for young players like Fonseca, to try to get the insurance break and have chances to be up double break, then not being able to convert, and then having to serve out the set. So I thought that was a very important hold for Fonseca from a mental standpoint. And this game at 5-3, Fonseca serving for the set was quite complicated. It went over deuce. But at deuce, I saw something from Fonseca that I don't see from a lot of other players, and I often compare this to Del Potro. I made an entire video on a very specific rhythm that Fonseca has when he gets a little bit of height on his forehand. So when there is time for him to load up in a very specific way, he will do a hop into the load that, again, is reminiscent to Del Potro. And anytime Fokina gave Fonseca a little bit of height from the baseline, this forehand came out, and it came out at deuce 5-3. Fonseca serving, and Fokina hit a high backhand into the backhand corner, and Fonseca ran around his backhand and did this particular footwork timing and absolutely demolished the forehand inside out for a winner. I highly recommend that you check my video out from a year ago where I discuss how exactly he executes this forehand. But now he's up set point, and this time Fokina gives him a lower ball that he again rips inside out, and he takes his first set, 6-3. Second set, Fonseca comes out blasting on the Fokina serve and gets the immediate break. And very similar to the first set, Fonseca continues to hold through the entirety of this second set, and he wants that insurance break. So he has 15-40, up 3-1. To go up 2 breaks. He can't convert. And this is where it can get a little bit tricky, especially now in the second set where he's so close to the victory with him being young. That's where a lot of young players could get a little bit tight, but Fonseca was far from tight, even though he couldn't capitalize on that insurance break opportunity at 3-1. Then at 5-3, where he had the first match point on the Fokina serve that he couldn't convert. Now he's serving for the title, up 5-4 in the second set. And again, this could have been a complicated game, but it wasn't, because Fonseca, very similar to Sinner against Zverev, delivered unbelievable bombs consecutively, and he missed one first serve in this game, which came with 40-love. He hit a great second serve. We got into a rally. Fokina came to the net, and Fonseca hit an absolute ripper low into Davidovich Fokina's feet and won his first ATP 500 title in Basel. My takeaway from the Basel tournament is that Davidovich Fokina needs to take a look at his body language in these finals and make changes. Again, he's a phenomenal player. And I do believe that he's going to take some big titles if he does make these improvements. If he doesn't, he could continue to struggle in finals because a lot of times he's going to be facing a top opponent who's going to show way better body language and is going to have a lot of advantages. Now, when it comes to Fonseca, he accomplished his goal. He's now a top 30 player, and he is going to be seeded at the next Grand Slam tournament. Again, he's very young. He's growing very slowly. Interestingly, prior to this tournament, he was getting a lot of criticism, and now all that criticism is gone. And actually, the hype is back. So now people are again talking about how he's going to challenge Alcaraz, how he's going to challenge Sinner. So a steady progress is better than shooting up right away. Some players struggle with that. Look what happened to Victoria Mboko this year after winning Canada. It took her 6 tournaments to win a match after winning a WTA 1000. So you never know what can happen. And I think the road that Fonseca is on is a steady one and a good one. And who knows whether he'll ever make it up there to the very top of the game. He absolutely can. He's that talented. What I'm looking for is improvements in his game from a technical standpoint, and he's absolutely done that. He has improved his volley a lot. His touch seems way better than he used to be. And most importantly, his serve now is more consistent, it's bigger, and he can mix it up as well. I think Fonseca has a great body language on the court. A lot of people always mention that he's not a good mover, but I have a hard time seeing that on the court, the fact that he doesn't move well. I rather think that Fonseca sometimes on the run will go for too much. This has certainly been the case at some tournaments this year that he makes a tremendous amount of mistakes when he gets pushed wide on the court. But I rather think that this is a shot selection issue rather than a footwork issue because to me, Fonseca seems like an exceptional athlete. So of course, his potential is sky high, but I like to stay in reality as much as I can. And what I find so interesting with Fonseca is that when he's doing well, he gets hyped up. And when he's doing poorly, people say that he's overhyped. So I think winning a ATP 500 at the age of 19 is a spectacular result that he can be proud of. Now, speaking of ATP 500s, did you know that there's a bonus pool on the ATP Tour? Meaning that if you play a certain amount of ATP 500s and you do well, you get more money at the end of the year. Well, not only at ATP 500s, but also at ATP 1000s, there's a bonus pool of $21 million that players can get if they play all the Masters 1000 tournaments. So there is an incentive there, but it goes a little bit deeper than that because players can play as many tournaments as they want, of course, but only 19 tournaments count towards their ranking and 20 if you count the ATP finals. So obviously, the ATP wants to pretend players just stacking up tournaments and stacking up points and inflating their ranking points that way. So not all tournaments count. Only your 19 best, including the ATP finals. Now, when it comes to certain tournaments, they are mandatory. So if you decide to skip one of these required Masters Series tournaments, there are 8 of them. This tournament, even though you didn't play it, will count as one of your 19 tournaments and you will get 0 points. So the ATP obviously has incentives so that players play as much as possible, especially regarding the big tournaments. And I want to go back to the Petkovic Becker podcast. That's, by the way, in German. So if you speak German, you can watch this. If not, I think there's a button on the YouTube player where you can translate a video. But in this podcast, Boris Becker said something so smart. And basically, he said that players complain about the schedule being too jam-packed and the schedule being too long. But then they jam up their schedule with a tremendous amount of tournaments. And I think he's 100% right. You can't complain about the schedule being too long and then play tournaments that you possibly don't have to play. You have to be smart when it comes to scheduling. Now, when we're talking about lower ranked players, I don't blame these players for playing all year long because they make a living from playing tournaments. But regarding the top players, Becker made an additional point, and he said that if you get out of the bonus pool for the Masters 1000 tournaments, maybe you even get a hit on your ranking from that 0-pointer, you can make up the ranking because you're going to be fresher, you're going to be working on your game and possibly performing better because you're more prepared. And you can make up the lost money from that bonus pool by playing a few exhibitions after the seasons. And you have to understand that there's a big difference between the Labor Cup, the Six King Slam, and a true exhibition. Even those tournaments, Labor Cup and Six King Slam, are not like real tournaments regarding the pressure that players go through from a mental standpoint. In my opinion, they are playing full out, but when it comes to a true exhibition where it doesn't matter who's going to win, maybe sometimes the result is prearranged. You're going to win the first set, I'm going to win the second set, so that the crowd gets a longer match. These type of matches are easy on the body. The risk of injury in these type of matches is close to zero because players do have the ability to gauge their intensity levels. And also there's 0.0 pressure in matches like this. So it is harmless for the players to compete in exhibitions. And like Becker said, the other tournaments that players are signing up for are absolutely exhausting. And if you decide to skip some, if you build your schedule more smartly, you're actually going to end up making more money and your rankings going to be higher anyway because you're going to perform better at the most important tournaments. I thought that Boris Becker made an excellent point. And I do believe that we're seeing this from Sinner and Alcaraz this year. The tournament directors are complaining about this, but these two guys, the two most important players on the ATP Tour, can call the shots and can show other players how it's done by being very selective about which tournament they play. And some tournaments will unfortunately suffer. Davis Cup is one of them because it's happening at the end of the year, and Sinner got Italy 2 titles, and Italy can't be mad for Sinner looking to protect his body and give himself a little bit more rest compared to last year. Another tournament that is going to suffer a lot is the Canada Masters, because I do believe that if Sinner and Alcaraz play the Roland Garros final and the Wimbledon final, it makes a lot of sense to skip that one and then show up in Cincinnati. Now, 6 months ago, I made a video discussing whether tennis is in trouble. And in this video, I made the point that the schedule is only too long for the top players and the ones who are going very deep in tournaments, because you have to understand that one of the most important things when it comes to the game of tennis is confidence. And how do you get confidence? Well, is by winning tennis matches. So if players are going deep in tournaments like Sinner and Alcaraz, they of course are going to be more selective on which tournaments they play because they have a lot of that mental pressure that they're dealing with and they need time to just decompress and, quite frankly, just relax, and they need to give their bodies time to heal. But what about those top players that lose in the first round, the second round of a slam, like Zverev, in many occasions this year, or Medvedev? Do you see Medvedev's schedule after his first round US Open loss? He played nonstop. So not all top players are the same because it depends how deep they go in the previous tournament. So when we look at the tennis draw, understand that obviously half of the draw is gone by the first round. Half of the players that enter the tournament, they only play one match that they lost. It's a horrible feeling when that happens to you at any level of the game, but especially at the top level where you're making a living from tennis. And what do you want to do? Well, of course, you want to go to the next tournament that's possibly next week, and you want to make money, number one, but you also want to build confidence and maybe win the first round. So understand that we don't want to necessarily shorten the calendar because the calendar has been the same for many years. Yes, there are some new tournaments like the 10th Masters that, similar to Monte Carlo, is not mandatory, so it's not going to matter that much in my opinion if players choose to skip it. But the season has always been like this. I, just out of curiosity, looked at the tennis calendar from 30 years ago, 1996, and guess what? The season started in the beginning of January and it ended in December. And guess what? Back in those days, they even had an exhibition tournament called the Grand Slam Cup, kind of similar to the Six King Slam. It was unbelievable money back in the day. This tournament didn't count for ranking points, but I think the winner got $2 million, which is unheard of back in those days. These are the 90s. So the season was basically the same. On top of that, players back in those days played best of 5 in the Masters finals. Now, why are players complaining today and they weren't complaining back then? Well, of course, tennis has changed. Just go on YouTube and look up old matches. You're going to see that the intensity of play is lower the further back you go in time. No doubt about it. It's a more physical game. It's a higher intensity game. Guys are hitting the ball harder. And it's, of course, harder on the body now than it has been. No doubt about that. To add insult to injury, the balls have been made more dead and players are suffering a lot. So it is true that maybe the schedule now is too long and it's just close to impossible to play the whole year without getting some physical problems. But I do think that the schedule is perfect in a sense where the entire year is built towards that ATP finals, and you just can't put the ATP finals right after the US Open and then have tournaments after the ATP finals that don't count towards the ATP finals. It would, in my opinion, completely ruin the calendar. So the solution is very simple, and that's get rid of the mandatory events, something that will never happen, okay? Because the ATP put those incentives there so that the top players show up at the most important tournaments. If you go back to the Toronto tournament, the tournament director was so upset that Sinner and Alcaraz didn't show up this year, and he was pleading with them to please show up next year. So it's in the players' hands. If they're willing to take the hit points-wise and get the 0-pointers, if they're willing to take the hit financially for being excluded from that bonus pool, which, by the way, a lot of money, but compared to the Six King Slam, and not really that much money, and Becker is 100% right, they can make up that money that they lose in the bonus pool. So it's in the players' hands. They have to just start skipping tournaments whenever they want to save their body and just take those ranking hits and the financial hits that are not really hits at all when you think about it. Guys, if you haven't yet subscribed to Intuitive Tennis, also hit the like button. If you want to support Intuitive Tennis, you can subscribe to Intuitive Tennis Premium. Go to intuitivetennis.com on your browser, or you can even get the Intuitive Tennis app. And on Premium, I just released a new course called The Role of the Elbow, with some very important videos regarding how the elbow functions and all the strokes with its forehand, backhand, serve, and everything else. And I also talk about tennis elbow, something that I actually had trouble with this year, and now I'm completely pain-free. So click the link in the pinned comment and subscribe to Intuitive Tennis Premium. I will see you guys in the next video.